But the Cleveland Browns are back in the news, and I want to sit up straight. I want to look right in the camera. This is for you, Jimmy Haslam. I want to congratulate you on negotiating that amazing deal to allow yourself to build a stadium in Brook Park. I want to congratulate you on only giving $100 million to the city of Cleveland in order for them to drop all their litigation, including litigation against the Ohio Department of Transportation, including the Modell Law litigation against you, which says you can't move out of Cleveland without offering to sell the team to those in Cleveland. I want to congratulate you for making part of the $100 million to flatten the site where your current stadium is. I love that. I want to tell you how great it is that you agreed to give $2 million a year for the next 10 years to community benefits projects. I love that. I want to tell you how unbelievable it is that you negotiated to give $25 million upfront to the city of Cleveland by the end of this year. What am I talking about, folks? I'm talking about a deal that was announced 2 days ago where Jimmy Haslam is giving $100 million to the city of Cleveland. And all of a sudden, the city of Cleveland said, wait a minute, for $100 million paid off in various ways over various years, I'm okay with the Browns leaving. Their entire position up until 2 days ago, publicly, very important word, publicly, is that they wanted the Browns to stay in Cleveland. Their entire position is everything they were doing was not to save face for Clevelanders, because the Browns were never moving out of Cleveland. They weren't doing a Modell. They were moving to the suburbs. But the city of Cleveland was suing everyone in sight. Why? Because they were negotiating with Jimmy Haslam and his wife. They were trying to get money to help balance their budget, to help figure out how to redevelop the area around the stadium that's currently in downtown Cleveland. This was all a business deal from the start. Do you remember when we talked about lawsuits, both in the NFL and anywhere? Lawsuits that settle because they're actually about money and not about the underlying issue, and then lawsuits that don't settle. John Gruden, Brian Flores won't settle. They want the NFL to be embarrassed. They want the NFL to be deposed. They want the NFL to be called out in public. Do you remember we talked about that? What was the city of Cleveland's goal? To embarrass Jimmy Haslam? They don't care. To keep the Browns in Cleveland? They don't care. What they wanted was money. And when money is what you want, settlements are not far behind. All that was left was to negotiate the payment terms. All that was left was to figure out, when will Jimmy Haslam pay this money? What will it be used for? While people within the city of Cleveland and the commissioners, county, city were all figuring out how to spend the new amount of money they were getting as they waved goodbye to the Cavaliers, 4869, as they wave goodbye to the Browns and have them move to the suburbs. This was one of the great examples proving what we talk about on this show about business. It's not the end of the show, so I'm not going to say it's just business, because we have about 13 minutes left. But people are shocked by this Browns announcement. $100 million? How can that be? Now, maybe you'll realize that what's going on in Brook Park is not just a 9-game-a-year stadium. All of these teams are developing neighborhoods. They're developing, it's Atlanta. It's Wrigley. It's Boston. They're developing, it's what Tampa wanted to do in St. Petersburg. It's about making money. It's what Inter Miami's doing in Miami. All of this ancillary development, the word ancillary would make it seem like it's not really of primary importance, but the truth of the matter is the ancillary development is everything, and it's the stadium that's the ancillary development. You can't spend $2 billion on a football stadium and make that work. It doesn't financially work. No matter what team you are, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you charge for your tickets, the math isn't there. So, how do you make a real estate deal for a stadium? You have to have the real estate. You have to be able to put in housing, hotel, retail. You have to find the other streams of revenue that are yours. Jimmy Haslam paying $100 million over the course of 10 years, basically, in order to be able to develop Brook Park and have the city of Cleveland and the nuisance that they are go away right now, that's like priceless. So when you're negotiating with an owner, to all of the people who are public officials listening to this show, when you're negotiating with owners, just know that you have way more leverage than you think you do, because the owners are going to act all high and mighty, and they're going to throw a ton of lawyers, a ton of money, a ton of consultants. They're going to outspend you, and they're going to think that they outsmart you because you're in the public sector and they're in the private sector, and therefore definitionally they're smarter. But the fact of the matter is, you have way more leverage than you think. All you have to be willing to do is walk away. Once the city of Cleveland realized that, listen, we are willing to let the Browns walk away, boom. Now you get to ask for the money. And now you get an owner to give you this money. I couldn't be happier for the city of Cleveland, because you're better off with the $100 million, no matter how it's paid from Haslam, than you are having a new stadium in downtown. You're going to redevelop downtown. You don't need the stadium as an anchor tenant. It just doesn't work that way when it's a football stadium. And I couldn't be happier for Haslam, because I know what it is to have distractions of lawsuits when you're trying to build a stadium. I know exactly what it is when you're fighting with the public entity and they're not even involved in the deal.